Chapter 35. Don't. You've already told me those old and dirty stories that you've heard from hearsay thousands of times. My ears are already tired of hearing them. Let's not talk about it. I'll sleep for a while. Don't worry, I won't die. In the middle. Old Huang, you've never had a wife? No, when I was young, I only knew how to do hard work, forging iron all day, but I couldn't save any copper coins. Later on, when I got older, which girl would take a fancy to me? That life was so boring and full of regrets. Fortunately, it's just like how I, Old Huang, have never tasted bird's nest or bear's paw in my life. I won't think about their taste. At most, I'll take the opportunity to take a few glances, and then I'll be satisfied. Eldest young master. Isn't this the case? I couldn't tell that Old Huang knew some logic. I'm just blindly thinking. Old Huang, you said that when Hua only thought about practicing the sword all day long, but looking at his posture, he doesn't seem to have the talent to wield the sword. Eldest young master. I think that just looking isn't enough. It's just like when I went up the mountain to gather firewood when I was young. Those strong people wouldn't work after chopping for 4 hours. I'm clumsy, but if I sharpened the chopper and chopped for another 12 to 14 hours, I'll be able to carry more firewood down the mountain than them. Moreover, if I go up the mountain to gather firewood, I might be able to see some good wood. I can cut a piece and sell it for a lot of copper coins. This method is too stupid. Stupid people have to use stupid methods, or else they won't be able to live. It wasn't easy for me to be reincarnated into this world. I feel that I can't just do nothing. Sigh, I can't stand your reasoning. Right, Old Huang, if I learn the sword, will I have a future? Then won't my future be at the peak? Old Huang, when this praise comes from your mouth, I really don't feel any sense of accomplishment. Hey, how many times have I told you, don't look at me like that? The head maid, Sweet Potato, looked at His Royal Highness' expression, and the corners of her mouth curled up slightly. Su Fengnian collected his thoughts and finally opened the last chapter. Ninth sword. Huang carried the case and leaped onto the wall, standing 20 feet away from Wang Xianji, 5 swords in the case, 8 sword moves. Wang Xianji dealt with it with one hand. A total of 68 moves. Ninth sword. Wang Xianji raised her right hand. Saber 9 was like the Milky Way pouring down from 1,000 miles away, destroying Wang Xianji's right sleeve. Wang Xianji fought with all her might. Jian Zhouhuang single-handedly broke through 49 moves until he died. Addendum 1. Jian Zhouhuang's meridians were severed. He sat cross-legged on top of the city wall, his head facing north. He died but did not fall. Addendum 2. After this battle, no one in the world would dare to say that the ninth sword Huang is inferior to the sword god Dong Tai. Inside the Sea View Tower, Chao Guanzi praised the use of the ninth sword style. The sword intent was so vast that there was no better sword move in the world. Addendum 3. The ninth sword's name is 6,000 miles, as told by the ninth sword himself. Addendum 4. Jian Zhouhuang seemed to have said something before he died, but only Wang Xianji heard it. Su Fengnian kept his head lowered as he stared at the letter. Looking at the side of his face, there was nothing unusual. After a moment of silence he finally said softly, "Sweet Potato, boil some yellow rice wine." This was not the time to boil rice wine, and the crabs and bass in the lake were still small. Thus the head maidservant said softly, "Your Highness, are you going to drink now?" Su Fengnian nodded and said, "Yes, I want to drink." Sweet Potato was clever and didn't ask any questions. She went to the cellar of Wutong Garden and brought out a pot of old yellow rice wine from Mount Huizi. She boiled a pot for His Royal Highness and brought it to the small sandalwood table on the bamboo couch facing the window on the second floor of Wutong Garden. Su Fengnian asked for 2 wine cups and waved his hand to ask the maidservants, including Sweet Potato and Green Ant, to leave. The entire second floor, which was filled with priceless antiques and paintings, became quieter and quieter. Su Fengnian poured 2 cups of yellow rice wine and sat quietly for an entire day. He didn't show any joy or sorrow on his face. As dusk approached, he caught a glimpse of the embroidered winter saber that had been neglected for a long time. Su Fengnian got down from the bamboo couch and took off the embroidered winter saber that was even more beautiful than the one Qi saber. He unsheathed the saber and the cold air seeped into his skin. That time, he recklessly stole Old Huang's sword box and was half dead that day. It was enough to see how heavy the sword aura inside the box was. The embroidered winter saber and the other swords were all good weapons for cutting off people's heads. They couldn't be compared to the gold and jade ornaments worn by the dandy of Liangzhou. Perhaps even the housekeepers and servants who entered the residence later couldn't imagine that His Royal Highness, who only knew how to seek pleasure all day long, had touched a saber for the first time at the age of 6. Su Fengnian carried the saber downstairs and saw a group of maidservants gathered in the courtyard with worried expressions. Su Fengnian smiled and said, "Go do your own things. It's good to put on a show. Otherwise, if Chief Steward Shin sees this, he'll grumble about how Wutong Garden has no rules." Su Fengnian quickly walked into the bedroom and took out the cardinal box from under the bed. He found the stack of silk that used charcoal to draw the sword aura. It was exactly the same as the cardinal box and had become a relic. Su Fengnian didn't want anyone to disturb him. He focused on reading it the entire night. After putting the simple sword manual back into the box, Su Fengnian raised his head and saw that his father, Su Xiao, had been sitting at the side for some time. Su Xiao asked, "Can you understand it?" Su Fengnian shook his head and said, "I don't understand. Old Huang's drawing skills are too bad and my comprehension is even worse." Su Xiao smiled and said, "You want to learn the sword?" Su Fengnian nodded and said, "I want to learn." No one knew a son better than his father. Su Xiao asked, "After you learn the sword, you want to go to the martial emperor city and get the 6 swords back?" Su Fengnian said calmly, "There's no reason to leave it there and let people laugh at old Huang." Su Xiao said indifferently, "Then can you get it back before you're 50 years old?" Su Fengnian sighed and said, "Only the heavens know." Su Xiao didn't comfort him at all. He just stood up and left with a casual expression and said, "Think carefully before you tell father." Su Fengnian looked at his father's back and asked, "What did old Huang say in the end?" Su Xiao stopped and didn't turn around. He said, "Let's talk about it after you've learned it." Actually, what old Huang said wasn't important. He was gone. 6,000 miles of wind and clouds. The sword box was erected at the top of the city wall. But the dozen or so jugs of yellow wine were still there.